Completing the square is the process we use to rewrite quadratic equations in vertex form. And the key to this process is using this identity here. If we take x plus b over 2 squared for any number b, and you FOIL it out and simplify, you're going to get x squared plus bx plus b over 2 squared. And so if we're trying to rewrite things in quadratic or in vertex form, this b over 2 squared factor is going to be the key that allows us to get there. So let's try this example. Y equals x squared plus 8x minus 9. First step, we find a, b, and c. Right? So a, the coefficient of the x squared term, is this invisible 1 here. A equals 1. The b coefficient, the coefficient of the x, that's an 8. And the constant term, the coefficient c, is minus 9. And that minus sign is important, so make sure you include that. Second step, if a equals 1, if our leading coefficient is 1, then we're just going to add and subtract b over 2 squared. That b over 2 squared that we had up there, this is where it comes into play. So in our example, a is 1. If it wasn't 1, we would be able to modify this this process, so we can handle those cases as well. But for this one, we just got a equals 1, so we're good to go. So we're going to add and subtract b over 2 squared. So let's go back to our equation. We had y equals x squared plus 8x minus 9. And I'm going to add in that b over 2 squared and subtract it right back. And I'm actually going to put it in between the 8x and the minus 9 because this is going to help us to see our perfect square pattern. So we add b over 2 squared, but remember b is 8. So 8 over 2 squared, and then subtract 8 over 2 squared. Let me give myself a little bit more space there. All right. Now, the next step, we want to factor the perfect square. So if we put parentheses, let me make them yellow parentheses around these first 3 terms, this is a perfect square pattern. That's exactly what that green box up in the top left corner is telling us. We can factor that as x plus b over 2 squared. We have y equals x plus 8 over 2 everything squared. And then we have the 2 terms outside the parentheses still. They haven't changed. So we added and subtracted that term. We didn't change the value, but by doing that, it allowed us to rewrite this first part as a perfect square without changing the balance of the equation. Now the last step, we're going to simplify. So y equals x plus 8 over 2 squared. We leave that alone. But the 8 over 2 squared minus 9, we can work with that. 8 over 2 is 4. 4 squared minus 9. Actually, we can simplify that 8 over 2 as well. So that's a 4. And then minus 16 minus 9. And so our final form of the equation, negative 16 minus 9, that's going to combine to minus 25. And so our vertex form is this equation here. And actually, this tells us that the vertex, if you're curious, the vertex would be, so we take the constant term inside the parentheses, we flip the sign, minus 4, and then the k, the minus 25, keep the sign there. Minus 4, comma, minus 25 would be our vertex.